So these are a few examples that will cover all the 10 points that I mentioned. Now I'll start with remove unused imports. Now if you come down here, so I'm using a linting extension for VS Code, which actually shows you which libraries are not used. So this OS library is not used anymore, and it's not really good that I keep it because it is only going to make my code really clunky. So it's good that I remove this line. Now, ordering of imports. Now, had I imported the OS library, it should have gone here because it's a standard library. Now, followed by the third-party library. This is also a standard library, followed by any third-party library that I would be using. So I have not used any, but if you're using a third-party library, to make sure that you listed here. So the third-party library comes here, and next comes library. Sorry, and next comes the modules that you have written yourself. The modules from the project, right? So this is the ordering. Now the next point is meaningful functions and variable names. Function and variable names. Sorry. So make sure that the function names, the method names, and the variable names that you're declaring actually convey the meaning that they're supposed to, right? So suppose you're writing something about food, make sure that the class name actually conveys the message, right? So I've written a class that is basically checking if it's edible, or also has two abstract methods, and it's basically about food. So the class name is food. This is being inherited by a class called biryani, another class called pizza, and also they have because they convey the functions of biryani, they're named biryani. So anybody who comes in understands that this class is basically a schema for the topic biryani, right? Or this is basically the type or the schema for pizza, right? And then this food is basically a list of the objects or instances of these classes. So make sure that your classes, variables, and functions have meaningful names. Maintain the character length of each statement. So I've maintained the character length of 79, and I haven't gone past the 79 character length. So make sure whatever makes sense for you, maintain that throughout the project. The only thing you have to understand that you should not write in a way that it's not readable humanly. So keep that in mind. Put comments in places that can be inconspicuous at first sight. So if you see that this is a very basic example, but it can really get complex when you're working on a real-time project. So the calorie calculator you might not understand if you're seeing it for the first time or a couple of times. So there's a small description written on top of it so that it makes it really easy for anybody who comes in without a knowledge of the program can understand what exactly this function is doing, right? So put comments at places that are not easily comprehensible. Keep function methods short and simple and dry. So what that means is that make sure as much as possible that your functions and methods do only a specific thing. Keep them short, really short. Try to be. And if you suppose you're trying to write a function that does calorie calculation, do just that. There's no point, bringing too much of functionalities or logic into a single function. If you at all have to, try writing smaller functions that you can call in your parent functions, right? That will make it really modular. And if you are using it more than twice, try to make a separate function for that particular logic. The thumb rule is if you're using more than twice, it's best that you create a separate method or function for it, right? So keep it short, simple, and dry. Follow good scoping principles and access specifications. Now, what that means is that in case you do not want a particular variable to be private, which should not be accessible to any other class, even if that class is inheriting from a parent class. So you do not want that. So in this example, is edible is a private variable, right? So I do not want that any class that is inheriting from food class to access this particular variable. So I have kept it private, and which means that I'm not or any class that is inheriting from this is not expected to touch or access this particular variable. Now, just a caveat: if you're using Python, the language itself might not stop you from accessing private variables or private properties or attributes. But if you see that there are two underscores, prefixed before a variable, it's just an indication that the variable has been kept there as a private, as a private property of that class. So do not touch that if you're inheriting, from a class that has private methods or private variables. So that. Now, the other point was input validation, right? So when you are taking in arguments, make sure that, or you sort of get parameters from command line. So make sure whatever parameter or argument or input you're getting, you're validating or checking the content of that particular variable, so that if you jump into doing the calculations and writing the logic using that particular variable without any validation or sanity check, you might end up getting results that you're not expecting. So the program will start behaving really weirdly and erratically. So make sure that there are certain sanity checks, certain validations are put in right before you do any sort of calculation or any logical any logical statements you write on those variables. So that will really make your program robust and functioning. And the last one is check termination conditions for loops and recursions. So if you have a loop in place or recursion in place, make sure you have a termination condition in place. Which means, so if I'm doing a factorial here, so my termination condition here is that this number, as long as this number is more than 1, keep on iterating. As and when you reach a state where the variable number becomes less than 1, stop the loop. So make sure you have this kind of termination conditions in place so that your program does not keep on running forever, and that is a very dangerous performance hazard. So make sure you keep that in mind and put this kind of checks in place while you're programming. So those are the 10 points that I wanted to cover for basic housing principles of programming. I'll put this code on GitHub, and I'll also put the link uh, in the description below, and also, wherever I post this video, you will find the link there as well. So thank you so much. I hope this video was really useful for you. Thank you.